Because otherwise I'm going to tell the secrets. I thought this was a short meeting, so I didn't prepare a lot of slides, but we'll sort of improvise. I've got a lot of slides. Like, who listened to my webinar 2 weeks back? Only one. Okay. Because I thought of creating some new slides, otherwise people might fall asleep. I could just take some slides from that webinar then, and you will only fall asleep then in this case. Is this question actually. Why as outsourcing companies we get stuck and how to get unstuck. And what I wonder about is who's in a sales position?
Everybody.
And like C-level or founder or owner of the company? Okay, so about half. I think always this like the question of being stuck is valid for everyone, but I think as a founder this is the one that you lay awake at night, so it's one that keeps going through your mind. At least that's what I had. Can I put this there? Because I think that's going to work better.
Yeah.
A growth cycle, or this is the way I see the cycle that as an outsourcing company you kind of go through all the time. Then I'll start with myself. I'll tell a little bit about my background so you know why I'm talking about this topic. And then I'll share some insights about why I think we're stuck. I'm talking about we're because I have the same thing. I have an outsourcing company, so like for 10 years I've been thinking, how do I get my company to grow and how do I speed that up? And then some ideas of getting unstuck, and I thought then we can go into a discussion, or I could go on with some other slides, but we'll see how it goes. So about myself, I did an MBA in Rotterdam. I graduated in 2001, so it feels like quite long ago. And then the first thing I did is to start a startup, because my idea was to start a company for myself and never really work for a boss. So the first thing I did was, out of university, to start something which is way too complicated. So I spent about 1.5 years there in 2001, and we tried to get financing from a company, but that didn't work out. So it was kind of I would call it a failure. And then I had to get a job, so I worked in a publishing company in Amsterdam for 1.5 years. And I learned a lot about sales. I put work sucks because I didn't want to get a job, and so that's the way I see it. I decided I never want to work for a boss. I want to create my own stuff, but I had to because my money was finished. But that's only my personal vision, because I hope you enjoy your jobs. And then in 2004, I left that company and I decided to start my own firm. And because I wanted to start something with outsourcing, I first went to India. It was a kind of coincidence because my sister was doing a traineeship there, but India at that time was it still is actually, the big destination for outsourcing. And I got really inspired by how the IT industry grew, because everybody's talking about this, and India sees the IT as their sort of vehicle out of poverty and the growth for India. And I think it's somewhat spread around the world, and in Ukraine it's similar today. But I also decided in 2004 that this is my company, Bridge Global. I started that in 2005, but the first decision I made was not to start with India, because I did a few projects in India with some Indian guys. Like my sister was doing this traineeship in a school, and they were all Indian guys sitting in a room, and we were discussing about this project, and this took like all day and no conclusion reached. So that gave me such a bad impression about India that I thought, okay, I go to Eastern Europe because it's easier. And then I met a few guys from Odessa. And I started by sending some projects to these guys, and they really worked out well. And over the years, I built a whole network of providers in Ukraine, from 2005 to 2007, I think. And then in 2007, I started Bridge Ukraine in Odessa with the guys that I had worked with, because it worked really well, and I was happy. And in 2008, I started a company in Moldova as well with another partner. That's already closed again, but we had at the biggest point we had 15 people, I think, but it didn't work out with the partner, so I closed it down. And then in 2008 I started living in India for 1.5 years. So this is how I usually walk around in Holland, with these like sort of dresses, and that's my wife and my kids when they were 8 months old. But then we took them to India, and I had never been there, but we had a good time, and this also helped me to really understand how Indians think, because I had a lot of prejudices about how this could work with India. That's why I chose Ukraine instead. But after living there, it's much easier for me to understand that when they say yes, that sometimes it means no. So it kind of makes it easier to work with them. So I spent 1 year there, and then I came back to Holland for 1 year, and then I went back to India again for half a year because I really liked the country and living there. And I set up our office over there. So we have about 70 people in India now. It's in Cochin in the southwest of India, so it's very hot, but yeah. So I still have the office there. And then last year, or 2 years back, I started with Equipa. Who has heard about Equipa? Okay, that's great. So it's the central idea here is it's inspired by Upwork or Odesk, and it's a marketplace. So instead of freelancers as you have on Odesk or on Upwork, we have teams. Welcome. We have teams from providers like yours or companies all over the world. So it's software companies who add teams to the platform, and then we try to match larger projects with teams that are in the database. And the idea was to make it. You want to ask something? No. Yeah. No, I thought you. Okay. So the idea is to attract larger projects because on Odesk and Upwork, who's getting projects from Upwork? Is that okay? In the webinar, I was surprised because Pavel asked like how many people are getting projects from Odesk. I think it was 30% or something. So, but the idea that we have there, it's like in Upwork, the projects are usually very small. I think the average size of a project in Odesk or Upwork is $800. At least that's what I heard. So it's kind of tiny, and you're competing with all the Indians and Pakistani guys that drop the prices. And like if you put a project in WordPress or something as an example, it takes 5 minutes and you'll have 200 proposals. So we thought, okay, maybe we can make something for larger projects, attract big projects in the range of $10,000 to $100,000, and then match that with teams instead of freelancers. Because if you have a bigger project, you're not going to work with 3 guys in different locations, I believe. So a larger project would run with a team, run by a company with management around it. I usually get a lot of questions about this platform. For now, this is my stock, so it's not really working as I had envisioned it. I had 2 co-founders who joined and they left now, but I think the potential is really big because whenever I explain the idea, it's like everybody's positive. And on the provider side, we got within a year after launching 600 companies who registered. So that worked out very well, but like now it's kind of an imbalance because the client side is not working as good. So we even closed the registration now. Because it doesn't make much sense to add more providers. So, in the last 2 years, as Natalia said, I wrote several books. I think your name is not on it. You wrote in...
And the first one, Not to Screw Up, and then
right.
Culture, Communication.
Exactly. So it's 6 different themes, and this was the first one we wrote because it's like more of a generic thing. Because like if clients from the West or Western Europe look at outsourcing and nearshoring, they often screw up. I mean, that's kind of a common threat, especially if they talk about India, by the way. And then I wrote how to get prepared, also for the client side, to sort of educate them on how to go about this, how to organize about culture, communication, and people. So you can download those books for free, actually, on that URL, and you'll have to leave your email address. And then this year I started with Equipa Academy, which is also why I'm doing the workshop tomorrow. So I thought, if I've got a lot of experience on how to deal with distributed teams, how to do offshoring, nearshoring, grow an outsourcing company, and I started teaching those things in the online academy and also in live workshops. And I regularly speak on conferences nowadays. I just came from Poland from an Agile conference, so then I speak more about how to manage distributed teams, so not so much about outsourcing, but I'm just experimenting with this. So you can go to this equipa.co/academy if you want to know more about this. The growth cycle. So the way I visualize it is that actually, if you, like throughout the life of your company, you go through 4 stages continuously, and as you go through it, your company starts growing. It's a very simplified vision of a company, but for me, it kind of helps to visualize how my business works. So I think everything starts with sales. That's why most people are here, I think. Like, you want to sell and you think, if I go and sell and I get more clients, then my company will grow. And if your sales guys are good, then your HR department gets a problem because they'll sell the projects, HR has to allocate the right people, attract more people, and they get the headache. And then if they do their job well, your operational side has to start working well because the guys have to deliver, and that's not always easy with a new client because the sales guy overpromises, this guy doesn't attract the right people, and then operations get distressed. That's a negative view. And then if the operation delivers well, then your marketing department makes, like, they get an easier life because you get testimonials from clients, you get good feedback, and with good marketing, the sales guys get an easier life again and they can sell easier, and this way you grow. That's the way I see it. And I also believe that you always get stuck at one of those points. So, you know, it's important to sort of think, where am I stuck and what can I do about it? And you know what, in preparation for the workshop that I do tomorrow, I was also thinking that in most cases the thing where you think you're stuck is not the right one, but it's a step before that. Because if these guys don't sell, it's probably because they don't have the right support. Yeah? And if these guys don't get the right people, it's probably because these guys they sold a Java project while you have .NET people on the bench. So I think it's usually the step before where you have to look for the solution. At least that's how I see it. I made it in the airplane. It's a simplified view on why I believe we're stuck in each of those blocks. But on the marketing side, I think that like outsourcing is a sort of commoditized product now. There is you're competing with everybody around the whole world. And you know, previously you had businesses or service companies also in IT that were servicing local clients. So even in the IT industry in Holland, you would have local providers who would provide, you know, the desktops and the hardware, and they would also make some software, but it was all local. And right now it's all globalized, so you're competing with anyone around the globe. And in all the countries there's IT providers. So it's not only India, Pakistan, and East Europe, but also Argentina, maybe even Canada for the US, for example. So I think the problem is that most companies are all selling the same thing. So like one thing that I'm always surprised with, I get a lot of emails from providers from everywhere, and usually it's the same story. Like if it's an Indian email, it's always, we're the leading provider from India. You probably get the same emails, but we're one of the best in India, and this is what we do. And do you want to talk? You know, you guys send a little bit different emails, but it comes down to the same thing. You know, usually it's a little bit shorter, but it's always a list of competencies, the technologies, and then an attachment with some projects to client testimonials. And I get, I think 3, 4, 5 a day. And I think all the clients in Western Europe and the US get the same thing. So it's very hard to differentiate. So we're all selling the same thing. On the sales side, it's sort of related, but you know, everybody's trying LinkedIn emails, and you just shoot out all those emails, and 1 out of 1,000 might reply. And I don't think that's the way to grow. It will work, you'll get a few clients, but it's not the way to grow. So you get stuck there. And then on the HR side, we're also all hunting for the same people. I mean, this is also a tough one, but there is stuff that you can do about it. But if you're a smaller company, you hire an HR person and he goes to the market and tries to find the programmers. It's the same way. Everybody's trying to fish in the same pond, and it's very hard to attract that talent. So that's also something to get stuck on. And we're delivering the same thing in the same way. So most companies work on probably fixed price models. You say, give me the project, I'll make an estimate, and I'll deliver it to you. Some companies go to Agile or Scrum and play with it, but still you'll probably use a fixed price contract, and I think everybody's doing the same thing. So there's no innovation there either, so it's also hard to differentiate, and you get stuck on that point as well. So how to get unstuck? I thought of making this model. I've made it a few weeks ago, but this is basically the path that I'm teaching on this Equipa Academy. So it has 4 modules. It's about marketing and sales, strategy, culture and communication, and delivery. And tomorrow in the workshop, I'm going to go through all of those steps except culture and communication. So in each of those blocks, I've got tools that I use. Some I've invented myself, some are from other people, but tools to help companies think about these 4 topics that I've just spoken about, and the 4 in this path. So on the value proposition or the marketing side, I always see marketing as value proposition, because it's about, you know, what are you bringing to the marketplace and how are you going to communicate that value that you've defined. And I use the business model canvas in the training tomorrow from Alexander Oosterwalder. Who knows this? Okay, great. So I bring something new. So this is a canvas. Alexander Oosterwalder is a Swiss guy, and if you Google this, you can find a lot of information about it. So you can download the canvas for free and print it out, and he has instructions and videos and PDFs. But the key thing is to stand with your whole team or your management team, maybe the whole company if you're not that big, and then work with post-its through all the blocks. So you could, for example, start with, you don't see, but this is the column value proposition. So you could start brainstorming about the different value propositions that you're having now, that you're offering now, and new potential value propositions that you could start launching. And then if you figure out that, it has an impact on all of those blocks. So you need to decide, okay, what kind of customer segments am I going to approach with the new value proposition? So you should define that clearly. What country are you going to? What kind of companies are you? What industry are you focusing on? What size of the company? And then if you, for example, say I want to approach those clients let's say you want to target hospitals in Germany, you have to think about the cost structure. So what does it mean? Like if you want to open an office in Germany, what does it mean for my cost structure? Do I need to hire people? What kind of partners do I need to get access to the market and also to deliver to the clients? What kind of key activities do I need to employ? So you can map out the whole business model, and it's more to get you out of the normal way of thinking and create new value propositions. Then once you figured out what kind of value proposition you're bringing now, or what new value proposition you could bring to the market, I always use this, and this is a method that I came across 6 or 7 years back. It's called the Rockefeller Habits, and this is one of their tools. So this is a sort of strategic or execution framework that has a lot of tools, but the one-page strategic plan is a management tool to define your strategy. So it actually, on the left side, it starts with the long term. So you've got your core values, you've got your mission, why do you exist, you've got a BHAG. Who knows what a BHAG is? No. So a BHAG means big, hairy, audacious goal. So this is like you set a goal in 10 or 25 years. I want to go, like an example is, Microsoft once said we want to have a PC on every desk. So this was a very big goal, long time, and they managed to do that. So it's something to get you out of your comfort zone. Instead of staying a small outsourcing company, you make this big goal so you can start moving. And then it goes on to goals for 3 to 5 years. So this is more like, if you have those long-term goals, what do you need to achieve in 3 years to make sure that you can make those long-term goals? So if you say, okay, in the end we want to dominate Western Europe, as an example, you might say, okay, in 3 years we want to have an office in Germany and we want to have an office in Sweden, right? These might be the 2 big chunks of work that you have in front of you. And then you translate that to yearly goals. And one of the keys of this is actually to have always 2 to 5 top priorities. So you can see that there's only 5 blocks, and this guy, the founder of this is Vern Harnish. He always says you need to have 2 to 5 rocks, or big priorities for the company, because if you have more than 5, nobody knows what to do, and in the end of the year you don't accomplish anything. So I think that helped me a lot, actually, to have this in mind. And you translate this to shorter term goals, so you define a quarterly plan, you define weekly plans, and also daily plans. And so the exercise that we're going to go into tomorrow is to figure out how you're going to fill this plan. Like you need to do this with your whole team, but what are you going to fill? And then once you fill this, and this takes a couple of days if you do it the first time, and it has iterations, it's sort of supported by a communication rhythm. So what he preaches is you need to have a rhythm of communication where every year you have the management team that gathers, every quarter you have a management team that gathers, and the management team then defines what kind of priorities they're going to focus on for the year and the quarter. You have monthly meetings, weekly meetings, and daily meetings. So what he's actually saying, you need to meet very regularly. I think it's, for me, what I like about this is it's somewhat similar as Scrum. Who uses Scrum? Only a few. Okay. So one of the keys of Scrum is to have communication all the time. So you have sprints, you have daily meetings, and you meet up all the time to align. So that's for the software team, but for the management team, I think it's also important to have this kind of rhythm in it. And this is my own invention. So this is a distributed team canvas, and this is a tool that I've used in my own company, and this is what I'm teaching on the conferences also. It's a tool to align your team with the client. So if you start a new project, if it's very small, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. But if you've got a project for several months, or you've got a dedicated team working for a client for longer term, you could do a workshop with the client where you're going to go through all of those blocks. Yeah? And then, so you could start, for example, with, again, putting it on a big wall and using sticky notes. And together with the client, you're going to figure out what kind of process you're going to use to collaborate. So the client might say, okay, we use Scrum, I don't know, as an example. And you say, we don't use Scrum, so you could start discussing how is the process going to look so we can collaborate well. And if we do that, how are we going to measure the performance of the teams and also the individuals? So you can define together with the client what kind of KPIs you're going to use to make sure that they're happy. You can also define things to build team spirit, because one of the keys that I have found, if you have a client far away and you never meet the guys, it's not really stimulating, it's not going to work. So you can, by doing this, you can address this to the client and maybe make a travel plan or some other games to break the ice so that the teams are going to collaborate with the client better. You can also define all the roles and responsibilities and define what kind of tools you're going to use. So it's basically an exercise in alignment, because I've been sort of moving the blocks, but like this one I've recently changed, because I found from the workshops that in a lot of cases knowledge transfer is one of the big issues. I had standards there before, coding standards, but I changed it. So I'm continuously trying to optimize the canvas so that it's really 8 blocks that address like the key blocks for a successful collaboration. So how you could use this is, I could actually send you this canvas. You can also download it in a Keepa. You can use this, you can print it, you can work with a client to go through it. You could even do it online, so that, because not all, the client doesn't always want to come to your office or meet up, but you could also do it virtually. You could put it in you have Canva as a tool, or you can put the canvas and then do it as a sort of online sticky note session. I also thought about sharing a couple of books that have really helped me to develop myself and my company. So this scaling up is actually the method that I've just shown you, the one-based strategic plan. So it's Vern Harniss who wrote it, and scaling up is to follow up to the Rockefeller habit. It's kind of launched last year, I think. I really recommend this book because it's very thin. It's really written for entrepreneurs. He has, like in every, I'm not sure about this, I read the Rockefeller habit, but he has a chapter of 1 page or 2 pages as a summary, so you can read it within a few minutes. And if you're interested in the topic, you can go through the whole book. And it has, I think, 7 topics, and it's an easy read, but it helps you to really get a view of how to grow the company. It's all about growing. Who knows Lean Startup? Also, okay. So Lean Startup is a method from the US. It sounds like startup, but he's actually using this for larger companies as well. And the basic thing in Lean Startup is that if you want to launch a new product, or you want to change you want to bring a new service model or value proposition to the market, you go through a loop of build, measure, learn. So you build something. If it's software, you build a certain product, a minimum viable product. Then you launch this to the client, and you try to generate feedback from the clients on the product that you've launched. You try to gather data, learn from those data, and then you build something else. So you go through this loop, and this is the way to launch new products or grow your own business. So it's a bit more thick than this one, but if you Google it, there's a lot of video materials about this as well. Who knows the 4-hour work week? Okay, so that's, so you guys are lazy. That's for me. Actually, I read this 10 years back, and like the title is somewhat misleading. I think, well, it makes the point, but I got a lot of inspiration from it. I'm actually going to live in Bali for a year, and it's also due to this book a little bit. But I believe what he writes about is ways to optimize your work, to become more effective, to become more productive, so that you could, if you want, work 4 hours a week. Not a day, by the way, it's 4 hours a week. So he gives you a lot of systems and tips on how to do this. And I think it's mainly about mindset, changing your mindset. So it's not really, it's not maybe a business book, but more a life book, I would say. And who knows this first? Okay. So this is Stephen Covey. It's very old management stuff, so I think I read this 15 years back, but I still use it on a daily basis. And the key thing in this book is that he writes, you need to continuously think about what the #1 thing is that you can do right now to have the most impact on your life goals or your company goals, whatever it is. So I always have this in mind when I start my day, or when I have a certain moment when I wonder what should I do right now. And it helps to prioritize. He has a sort of metrics with 4 quadrants in it. If you Google that, you can, I think, find the quadrants, and this helps you to think about, like, I think it's quadrant, you read it, right? So quadrant 1 is, you have important, I think quadrant 1 are the important things, but they are urgent, and then quadrant 2 are not important, but, and not urgent. No, sorry, they are important and not urgent. And what he basically says is most people spend their time in the quadrants where they have not important things that are very urgent. So you try to, put off the fires. Or you're just filling away time. You're checking email or you're checking your phone all the time. And like most effective people spend their time in quadrant 2, which are the long-term things, like going to a training or going to this event to learn about something new, or making a strategy with your management team. So it's about the very important thing, but they're never urgent. So you consciously need to decide, okay, that's what I'm going to do today, because normally you sit on your mobile phone. This book is more for how do you build relationships. It's about, probably nobody knows it, but I liked it. It's, okay. You read a lot of books. So it's about how to build relationships with people. And this one is actually, I read it I think one time back, but it's, the central idea is that when you start giving away things to people, be it knowledge, be it gifts or whatever, and you start thinking about other people instead of what you can get from a relationship, things start coming your way. So it is for salespeople actually, but it's more of a mindset book. So I thought let's have some discussions about where you guys are stuck and what we could maybe share some experiences between us or maybe among each other about how to get unstuck.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yeah, that's also okay.
First of all, thank you for lecture. And I have a question. You said that after 1 year and a half, you started your company, yes? And I'm interested, actually, where did you get your first clients? You had no reputation on the market?
We didn't.
Huh?
You mean for that first startup, where we didn't get any clients? That was the problem.
No, you said that you started to deliver some projects in India and then to Eastern Europe, to Odessa, for example. At that time period,
right.
From where did you get it?
I just picked up the phone.
So it was just total cold calls and cold emails?
Yes, because it's, I didn't have any network, so I just thought, actually my idea was to start not in IT, but with desktop publishing. So I thought, because everybody's doing programming outsourcing, I thought, let's make some, like if you make a brochure or some travel book, you can have a desktop publishing person in Eastern Europe who would work for the graphical company. So I just started calling people, but then I found out it didn't work. And I don't know, I just started calling people. And I think in the beginning we had some sort of Dutch version of Odesk. I think that's where I got my first project. Not on Odesk, but it was freelance.nl or something.
Freelancer.nl.
Yeah.
I usually also use it.
You use it, okay.
Yeah.
And it works?
I'm not sure yet, because I started it about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Just had communication
But you
with
write
few
in Dutch?
clients. Yeah. No, not in Dutch, in English, but we have a partner in Netherlands, so if someone does not know English, I just forward the contact.
Okay, that makes sense. When I started using that, it was 2005, and there was no outsourcing companies on it. They were just looking for freelancers, so I was the only one approaching them with another proposal. So I think, but it might work. I don't know. It's just, but again, I think it's shooting. You try to.
Yeah, but there are not so big amount of projects if you compare with Upwork. So.
No, it's small. Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Yeah, so exactly. So I'm preaching don't shoot out emails and cold call because it's not effective, but I think it's the only way to start because you have nothing else.
Yeah. And one question. You also said that everything in every company is almost the same, like marketing, sales, operations, and so on. And so how to be unique? So of course I know that you can talk about this topic for hours, but still maybe some recipe for this.
If I knew that, I would be really rich. I don't know. I mean, it depends on the company. I think that's the core challenge you face. You need to find out what makes your company unique and how can you differentiate and come to the market. But again, it's very hard in this market because there's so much supply. I think the key is to find something maybe outside. I mean, if you, for example, look at a product that you've built for somebody and then try to build a product out of this, or maybe you pick one solution you built for a client and then start to grow to focus on only that solution, then you could create something more unique. Like if you build, I don't know, and again the example of an app for a hospital or something, and you built it for an American client and you start productizing this, then you could focus on approaching only hospitals in a specific country, and then it will spread. And they will know, okay, in Ukraine we have a lot of talented people and we're cheaper than people in Western Europe or the US. So you start selling hands, and this is a very good model because it's lucrative for you. Because I love it. You know, if you have contracts with dedicated teams for 4 or 5 people that last months or years, you earn a lot of money from that and you don't have any headache. If you do projects, it's different. But this is also what everybody tries to sell. So I think this is sort of outsourcing 1.0, where most companies start. And then in 2.0 you get what I've just said. You have a specific solution and you try to focus on that solution and have a customer segment and in a country and then start focusing on that. And then you get recognized for the solution and also within the market, because hospital market is small and the people will talk about it. And I think the third part, if you look at the bigger companies like Cyclen, you can see that they made the same move, because when they started, their magic formula was have your own dedicated team. But if you look on the website right now, they offer a lot of solutions and they even talk about innovation. And I think this is like, innovation is where service companies should eventually go, but it's also hard to get there. And if you offer innovation, you could do a workshop with your client, for example, where you start thinking about new products together with the client, or you take a certain problem that they have within the company and then brainstorm solutions. But then you're all the way in the beginning of, you're not selling a software solution or saying we can develop this for you, but you start generating the ideas. So I think this is actually where eventually, if you manage to get there, you can make the big difference. And this is not like most software companies don't do this. They don't go there.
Can you give some specific examples?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have the slides here, but no, I don't. Yes, let me see. I have it in this one. So this is from the side of Cyclen. I think in previous, yeah. For me, this sort of proves that those 3 stages are there, because what they say, like before I checked their website every few months, and they said dedicated teams, blah blah blah, for years, and now they say from ideas, optimization to delivery. So that means that's what they're concretely offering their clients. And I also heard they get a lot of, like when I get a new client, they'll get them to their office in Ukraine and they put a whole team around it to start brainstorming about that specific project that they have. So the offering becomes much more rich than just tell me what to build and then I'll build it. On the site you even see those 3 stages: own development team, custom software development, and consultancy and training.
So it means they provide a kind of consultancy to the client?
Yeah. Yeah, but consultancy is kind of ambiguous, you don't know what it means. But I think in this case it means that they're going to help the client to solve business problems. So they will help to come up with the ideas for it. Like software might be one of the solutions, but they'll come up with it.
The customer wanted to make some project in one way, but after discussion they can offer him to make it in a completely another way. Yes.
But yes, I think that's where they are. I'm not sure, but I think that's where Cyclen is. But that.
Cyclen is not outsourcing, it's our staff company more, and they focusing on it.
I think that's what they did, but I'm not sure if they still do that.
Yeah, they still. It depends on the project. So if the company who arranged the project to the Cyclen has own management,
right,
then it will work fine. Yes, but if they taking the management from Cyclen, it go down. Like if you look on Playtech, they worked with Cyclen for a few years, but after moved out as a.
But I guess that was also the contractual agreement, right? Because that was 50%. Like it was a really big team.
Yeah.
I don't know the details, but I do know that they do. I mean, it's not black and white, but I think if you really sell only the dedicated teams, you tell the client, okay, you've got your product, you need a couple of people extra. We'll have that team for you, and you manage them, right? That's the main model that Cyclen, I think, has, and I love that model as well. Everybody, but if the client comes with a product, then they'll work in another way, and I think then they come more to consultancy.
The one thing it depends on the project. So if you want to make the product growing, then you must be not a project manager but product owner.
Yes.
So in this case, you will push the project.
So you mean they have the product owner role in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. But then you get to sort of consultancy, I would say. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is also an interesting example. This is one of the big Indian companies, HCL, and if you Google that, you can even see a video of how they do this. But they really make a physical lab in the company, in the client office. So what they basically sell is, okay, we've generated new innovation for hospital ABC, and we can do the same thing for you. And they sell sort of an ideation lab or an innovation lab. So they just, and that's the setup, and they'll put the whole room in the office of the client with post-its and canvases, and they put some consultants of HCL in the room along with some client people, and they start brainstorming about innovation. But this company, in the end, the major cash cow for HCL is the same as what we all want, selling hands. You know, in the end, because from those innovations, they will try to sell as many Indians as they can to develop the software that came out of this innovation lab. So I think that's maybe also an example for this.
Starting the company in India, with what you have started, how, if you could tell us, please.
So first I took the map of India, and then I drew a line in the middle because I didn't want to go to the north, and I didn't want to go to Bangalore or Mumbai or Delhi. And then I shortlisted 3 cities, Cochin, I think Trivandrum, and then Mysore. And then I started Googling, and I found that there was a guy a Dutch guy doing a traineeship in Kochi. And then I thought, okay, I'll go to Kochi. So that's like, I don't know. And then there was an old friend of mine who quit his job, and then he went there. So he went there, I think we went there the first time together in January 2008. And we spent 2 weeks finding an office. And then in April he moved there. And he hired the first programmer that started in June, and then from there we grew it, really from nothing. And then in the end of 2008, after half a year, I went there to live there for a while. But, yeah, it was a nice experience. Yeah.
Was it hard to find first people, first specialists?
It's not hard to find people, it's hard to find good people. I think that took 3 or 4 years before we were in a good level.
How did you identify that developer is good enough to work for you?
I didn't know. And the friend that went there didn't know either. So in the beginning we were really struggling. Because you have no image, no brand, nothing. And then over the years, and then we hired some HR people who also didn't know. But if you have a few,
was from Holland or they're
no, Indians. No, so the friend of mine, he was a Dutch guy, but he spent the first 1.5 years there, and after that I replaced him with only Indians. But what I always did is to have a few local guys, like a few Westerners who would live there for a while. So we took trainees. Maybe that's an interesting idea. Also, we hired trainees through ISEC, which is a student organization worldwide. You can place an ad for a trainee. So we took people for 9 or 12 months from Sweden and Germany who would live there for that period, and then they would sell to their own country. So we would give them a phone and a computer, and they would just start calling them. And so the side benefit was that we got some sort of European culture over there, and that attracted a lot of Indians. So that worked.
Do they all speaking well English or not?
I understand them, but if you talk to them, you won't, I guess. I don't know, I've learned that it takes about a week or 2 weeks to get used to the accent. If I talk to an Indian guy, I understand all of them now. So I think it's just it's a habit.
Hugo, how do you control the remote teams? And what about quality? Like, can you measure the quality, or if it's still on a high level?
We're still talking about India? Or
Yeah, remote teams.
In general, how do you measure the quality of a remote team?
Yes, and how do you control and monitor them?
How do you do it?
Well, asking you first.
I'm supposed to get all the answers. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's always a tough question because I think if you use Scrum, then the key is to have velocity.
Yeah, but if you are growing fast, if you are scaling, right?
Yeah.
And you have, let's say, for instance, you have more clients than people, but you still try to manage everything, and then the quality is really getting bad, not worse, let's say.
So you have too many clients and too few people to deliver on it.
I mean, like, for instance, yeah, then, or how you just control people, or how you monitor the quality, or how you can just make sure that, because Scrum is when you, let's say, in technology, like for a couple of years, but let's talk about like when back 2008, 2010. Or maybe you have some.
I don't know. I really don't believe that you can grow a company if you work on a traditional waterfall fixed price model. It's not going to work because I think if you have 10 projects, 8 will go well, then one you finish with a lot of effort, and then one gets a real disaster. That's my experience. It's very hard to manage the quality if you do fixed price work. And also to deliver on the client satisfaction because you have to say, okay, this is the date, this is the price. It's hard. So I'm totally convinced that the way forward, if you want to scale, you need to have Scrum. And you need to get bigger projects as well. Because if it's 1 or 2 people working for a few months, it's not going to work even with Scrum.
If it's a 1, 2, 3 people working like lifetime.
Then I think Scrum is the way because it's, you get more flexibility and engagement from the client. And they sort of form one team. So you don't get us versus them, client, us, but it's sort of one. Because the product owner is part of the team and that's the client, and you might have a proxy product owner over here, and then the Scrum Master and a few developers, and they work really as one team. But quality it's sort of subjective. You know, when we were
people ask about like KPIs, about like some measurements, how you can measure it, and you're supposed to give numbers. Only with numbers you can understand whether it's better or to the same level.
So who decides? That's the big question, right? One thing that worked in our company was, at a certain point I thought about the same question, and I actually thought the only thing that's important is that the client gives me feedback on that they say the quality is good. So what we did is for every, like if it's a dedicated contract, we had a sort of survey with 5 or 6 characteristics: code quality, communication style, proactiveness. And the client could also decide on the sort of measures that he found important, and ask them every month to give a rate of 1 to 10 for each developer.
But okay, how many clients have built this? Because usually.
Well, but that doesn't matter, because if the client says you deliver shit, then you say, yeah, but I ask you every week.
They deliver shit, even if they're satisfied, they don't say that they're satisfied. I mean, like, they don't have time to fulfill this service.
Right. So the other thing that's true, and not everybody feels it, but still, I think the fact that you offer it helps you to change the discussion, right? Because you have offered it, and if he doesn't give you the feedback, what can you change? And the other thing that I've worked well with is to have a person that is sort of a process manager. So we have one guy or a girl who's always managing, as a process manager, several teams or several projects, and this person is not inside the project. So the only responsibility he or she has is to make the client work well with the teams. So it's sort of a coach. And that person gives every week has a Skype call with the client separate without the team, and asks, what do you think about the collaboration, what kind of issues do you have, and oftentimes we also ask on a scale 1 to 10, how satisfied are you about the collaboration. And if you ask that every week, and again clients might say, I'm not going to give you that, but
it's better than just
or you'll see it coming, you know, when trouble hits the fan, and you'll see that it comes. And that helps a lot, because oftentimes, especially if you work fixed price, you have to wait weeks or months before you can deliver something. And in the beginning, it's always good. And the client says, I'm happy. But at a certain, they don't always tell it's not going that well. You don't see it. So if you ask every week, you'll get more feeling and you can act.
What about the Kanban?
You know, one thing I find is that Kanban is sometimes used as an excuse not to do Scrum and just create some sort of mess, but I think some teams work with it successfully.
Like we had a few projects,
yeah,
fine, because it gives to client the power to say this feature I don't need now, stop to develop, and I need and I sell already this feature.
Yes.
And we develop every day, like deploying the new version every day, and client happy.
Yeah, that
so
good.
he not need to wait in like 2 weeks to finish all the sprint to get there.
So I think then you gave the answer. It works, but I think I mean it can work. We don't have projects in that, but I hear a lot about it. Like for example, yesterday this is more big. Like yesterday I was at a conference with a lot of people from Intel, and this guy said that he used a Kanban board on like they had 15 teams working globally. And they used a Kanban board to define the epics for very large projects. And then the teams would work with Scrum. And then you had sort of a team in between with a team lead. And that team lead would decide which epics would go to each of the teams. Or to his team. So they combined Kanban with... But I don't hear that many teams that use Kanban for the development. But this sounds like a good example.
What do you think? Maybe we can make like short break because 1 hour is past, maybe like some refreshing.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
Then I can drink back.
Then let's make like 10 minutes break or like 15 minutes breaks just to communicate, and also who hasn't registered yet, so it's like also here, and you can also